What's up guys and girls, my name's Stuart. Today we're going to be having a real quick look at Spider-Man on PS4. Yes, I'm a little late to the party, and yes, considering this is now one of the year's highest selling PlayStation games, I highly doubt there's anyone left looking at reviews, but I spent a lot of time recording this footage, so screw it. This is my look at Spider-Man on PS4, and these are all the things you actually want to know about it. Is the swinging as good as Spider-Man 2? Straight off the bat, this is one of those things that literally everyone asks when a new Spider-Man game comes out. Spider-Man 2 on PS2 is one of my favourite games of all time, and its physics-based swinging mechanics truly made you feel like Spider-Man. But now, after 14 fucking years and 2 new console generations, we finally have a game that makes you feel even more Spider-Man-y than Treyarch did. Honestly, when I first booted up the game, it did take me a tiny moment to get on board with the swinging, but as soon as you take off your rose-tinted spectacles and start comparing it to your childhood, you can see that Insomniac have done an incredible job here. They've taken the best bits of previous games and sprinkled it with their own dose of style and fluidity. You feel the momentum of every swing, jump and zip. If I had to be nitpicky, I would say that occasionally it feels as though there isn't much weight behind Spider-Man, especially when you jump off high buildings. You expect there to be much more force when you go into swing than there actually is. But overall, Insomniac have truly nailed the feeling of being Spider-Man. They've taken the crown from Just Cause for the most fun way to traverse a game world, and honestly right now I can't even imagine going back to an open world game where all you can do is walk or drive around. It's just that good to swing. Is the combat just another Arkham clone? Okay, so you often hear this being thrown around whenever a new action game comes out these days. Oh, your combat is just like Arkham. Yeah, shut up. While that can't be denied in some cases, I think we all need to take a step back and realise that the fighting system in the Arkham series wasn't all that revolutionary. You press a button and you go towards someone and you hit them. Press another button and you counter. There's like 4 buttons on the controller. There's not a lot else you can do with this. Okay, alright, so yes, Spider-Man does feel a little bit like Arkham. However, it's different enough to not feel like a straight carbon copy. There's a lot more movement involved, you dodge rather than counter for example, and you'll be zipping around a lot more than Batman is capable of. The Arkham series I always felt was a little too connecty with its combat. It was kind of like putting puzzle pieces together and it always felt a little bit rigid to me. Whereas Spider-Man manages to have a looser, more fluid feel to its fighting that gives you the sense of having more control. One thing that does annoy me is the sheer amount of hits these bad guys can take though. Considering you're throwing superpower punches, they just keep on coming back for more, and it can start to feel a little bit butter mashy after a while. Luckily, the array of Ratchet and Clank style gadgets Spider-Man has in his arsenal work well to break up the fisticuffs and do stop things from becoming tedious. Generally, the combat is fun though, and while similar to the Arkham series, it sets itself apart from just being a clone. Is the world just a collectathon, and is the story any good? Okay, so honestly, the things to do in the world of Manhattan is where Spider-Man on PS4 does falter somewhat. I'm going to address the story first though, as there isn't much that can be said without spoiling things. But overall, it's a very solid Spider-Man tale that, despite a couple of pacing issues, will keep you engaged for nearly all of its 15 to 20 hour runtime. The central mystery is intriguing, MJ and Peter's tale of romance is cute, and there are moments in the story, especially with Miles, that are truly heart-wrenching. The voice acting is stellar on all counts, and Yuri Lowenthal gives the best Spider-Man performance of any game.
The other guy's bigger, you gotta be quicker.
In terms of gameplay, you'll be spending your time doing a lot of stealthing, both with Spider-Man and Mary Jane, as well as fighting, obviously, and wandering around talking to homeless people or doing science minigames as Peter. Why people always beg for Peter gameplay sections in these games I don't fully understand, but it does break up the fighting with something a bit different. Honestly, I was expecting there to be a bit more action-packed throughout the story, as despite what it may appear from the Prison Break gameplay at E3, you will not be squaring up to the big-name villains every half hour or so, as they are in fact used quite sparingly. Still though, the story gets an A+ from me. On the other hand, aside from swinging and punching, how you'll be spending your time in between story missions is where Spider-Man does become slightly less amazing. Just taking a quick look at the map, and this is after I've already spent a long time clearing it, you can see just how much there is to do around New York. And while on paper that doesn't sound like a bad thing, honestly Spider-Man does fall into the same trap as many open world games in that it does end up becoming a bit of a grindy collectathon.
Gotta be quick.
There are different crimes, which often just boil down to fighting demons on the street or fighting demons on the roof. There's hideouts in which you fight waves of demons. There's combat challenges, which, well, you get the idea. If you don't feel like fighting, then you can do stupid boring shit instead, like finding radio beacons to unlock more collectibles on the map, catching pigeons for a homeless dude to eat or something, taking photos of landmarks and finding old backpacks, or spraying fish with medicine and clearing sewer pipes for those goddamn research stations. I get that they wanted to show more of the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man with these missions, and I like that. There's just too much of it, and if it wasn't for the swinging being such a joy, then it would quickly become super monotonous. One thing I do want to say is that although the combat challenges and whatnot aren't anything particularly special, I do like that these side missions have a villain attached to them, with interaction and miniature boss fights with the Taskmaster. Although he is a bit of an idiot, it made the missions much more fulfilling than simply getting another token for your upgrade, and this is something that should definitely be expanded on in the next game. Other questions you may have. Can you jump to your death from the Empire State Building? Unfortunately no, as there is no fall damage for some reason. Alright, but can you throw bad guys to their death off buildings? You can chuck them off, certainly. but they just get stuck to the wall further down. Once the webbing wears off though, I like to assume they will die. Can Spider-Man swim? Yes, and he looks like an adorable otter doing so. Does Black Cat ever undo her top like in the comics? No, she doesn't even show up. She just makes you find her stupid cat dolls for her. And if you're that hard up, just look for some Rule 34 stuff, you nerds. Is Puddlegate a real thing? Nah, look how moist it is. Can you get hit by the train and hilariously bounce off like Spider-Man 2? Unfortunately, nah, you just get crushed. And finally, should you buy this game? Well, like I said at the beginning of this video, everyone already has. But if you haven't, then hell yes you should buy this game. Honestly, how often is it that we get a great Spider-Man game? It's even rarer than a solid Star Wars movie.
You're Spider-Man. You're the amazing Spider-Man.
Anyway, this has been Stuart, and that was my quick review of Spider-Man on PS4. If you enjoyed the video, then go ahead and give it a quick like, and if you really want, you could even subscribe. And then we might just become best friends.